bye week. We have some things to catch up on. You know, bye week is a time you want to go back and look at how the first half of the season has gone, while also looking forward to the home stretch, down the stretch. And we all know this is typically not a great time of the year for Rutgers football, especially the past 3 to 4 years. This is a time of the year when the schedule gets a little tougher, and the injury bug is once again, it has bitten us this year, much like it has in the past few years. But I think as a program, we thought we might have gotten beyond that with having the depth that a Big Ten team needs to have in order to move forward and make some progress. So it's a good time to assess of where we are, and you are what your record says you are. We're 4-4. Going into the season, a lot of people thought if we had were able to be undefeated before the USC game, that would have set up a really big matchup with USC. But who knew USC would be 3-4 before we met up with them and they ran us out of the Coliseum. So they have a couple of 4-4 teams. But when you look at where they are and how they play, I think you probably would be more comfortable being USC now than you would be with Rutgers. Nonetheless, let's take a look at how the season has gone so far, what we could look at or look forward to or not look forward to down the stretch. We all know that this is a time of the year that we don't do well. For the past 3 years, we're 4-17 heading down the stretch. It's not good. Yes, we've had an inordinate amount of injuries that decimated the team and our play. But when we look at it, before the season, we thought we had some more depth, we had more size, so if we lost a guy or two, it wouldn't tank the season. But it looks like there's just a huge deficit between the guys, that are starting and the second stringers. For some reason, our play, unlike a lot of other Big Ten teams who also have injuries like UCLA had, like Wisconsin had, like USC had, with missing 4 guys in the secondary, somehow they're able to find a way to win games. And we have, like the guys on the Night Report said the other day, we just haven't learned how to win in the Big Ten. Coach Schiano loves playing in the Big Ten because of its academics and the competitiveness of its athletics, but we're struggling. We're 4-17, and the wins that we've gotten against Indiana, Michigan State, Tom Allen, those Indiana teams weren't very good. We had the crazy game in the rain and the wind and all that against Michigan State last year that we kind of pulled out. But that's about it. We had a win this year against a Washington team that's also 4-4. It was a big deal at the time, and I thought it was a good win no matter, regardless what they do this year, because they won a national championship game last year. And their recruiting classes are still very good. And it's a name brand school. So beating them was kind of a big deal for us. But right now it's looking like our Virginia Tech win is the best win of the year. They're 5-3 now. They're picking up steam. This is looking like a good win. But if Virginia Tech, a 5-3 Virginia Tech team is your best win, I'm not sure how much progress that we're actually making. We look at 2021. We were 0-5 down the stretch, right? We had a big win against Delaware. Yes, thank God for Delaware and Wagner and Akron and Howard. We beat a bad Illinois team and a bad Indiana team. We go 2-7 the last 9 games. Because we wind up going to play Wake in a bowl game. We lose 38-10 to Wake. Wake is not exactly, they were pretty good at the time, but, again, and, we had a scramble. There were guys that weren't playing in that game for us. But still, even in a bowl game against a team that's not a powerhouse, we're losing by 4 touchdowns. So we're on 2022. After a 24-17 win over Indiana, boy, what a difference a couple years makes for them. Kurt Signetti makes it all the worse for Rutgers fans, all the more painful. We lose 31-0 to Minnesota. 31-0. Remember, they had a really good running game. Played well defensively, had balance. We lose to Michigan, 52-17. Lose to Penn State, 55-10. We lose to Michigan State. The worst loss out of all of those was probably 37-0 to Maryland, because it was just like we laid over and we just rolled over. After Wagner, 2023. We lose to Ohio State. Okay, you're going to lose to Ohio State in a game that was kind of winnable. We just had a really bad game, really disappointing game against Iowa. Lost 22-0. We lost to Penn State. 2-5 down the stretch. A couple wins, though, gets us to a bowl game. We're able to beat Miami in a pinstripe bowl. But this is a time of the year that we struggle. We're 4-17 overall, and it doesn't look like it's going to get much better for us this year. Is there a game on the schedule coming up? Michigan State, Minnesota, Illinois, Maryland, that we could say, hey, we're going to win this game. They're all toss-ups. Everything's a toss-up. And here's what makes it kind of difficult. Because at the start of the year, if you said, okay, Michigan State, we got this. I don't know if anybody got a chance to watch the Michigan State game. Rivalry game, those two. It's a big rivalry, Big Ten game. I thought it would be kind of closer than fun. It was. Michigan wins 24-17, but Michigan State dominated that game in the first half. Until a couple minutes left in the first half. Michigan, who loves to run the ball and will run it for 290, 300 yards, had 12 yards rushing. Michigan scores 9 points in the last couple minutes of the first half, then gets the ball in the third half, and they score again. That 5 to 7 minute window, beginning the end of the first half, beginning of the second half, changed the trajectory of the game. But make no mistake, Michigan State played really well. It was 24-10 late. Michigan State scores a touchdown late to make it 24-17. But this isn't going to be and Aiden Childs actually had a decent game. This isn't going to be a game where we can say, okay, we have a good chance. If they play defense like they did against Michigan and can play against the run like they did against Michigan, it's going to be a challenge for us. Now, Michigan, doesn't throw it well, so if we're able to have better balance, we have an opportunity there. But nonetheless, Michigan State, not going to be an easy game. Minnesota, absolutely, positively destroys Maryland. (48-23). Minnesota puts up 48 points. Billy Edwards, Maryland, Loxley likes to throw the ball. They had the number 9 passing attack, averaged 320 yards a game. Against Minnesota, Billy Edwards was 19 of 35, 201 yards, no touchdowns, and a couple picks. I don't think we're going to be able to repeat that because our defense has been really bad. Secondary's been bad. Linebackers have been bad. We haven't been getting pressured guys wide open all over the field. It's going to be a challenge. Rosmer from Minnesota, and he's typically not, he doesn't compile stats as a passer, but he had 320 yards and 4 touchdowns. So Minnesota, if they're at a spot right now where they're picking up momentum on the back half of the year, and this is what drives me nuts about Rutgers. We're so predictable. The pattern is set. We don't pull off that win that we should against teams like UCLA. We should have won that game by double digits. And I've said this in the past couple videos, like Pat Lanny said from the Rutgers Rant, NJ.com, we don't beat conference foes and our peers in an easy fashion. We don't separate ourselves. Why can't we beat UCLA by 2 touchdowns? Other teams do it all the time. Illinois beat Michigan by 2 touchdowns, 21-7. Luke Altmaier in that game only had 80 yards passing. And still they won. We don't have that vibe. We don't have that karma. We struggle. It's a constant struggle. The only time we look decent is against the FCS teams, subdivision, FBS subdivision teams. But in the end, that doesn't matter. Who cares if you beat Wagner and Delaware and Akron and Howard? Doesn't matter. Yes, you're trying to build wins, build confidence, build momentum, add some wins to your total so it gets you to a ball game. But in the end, you are who you are. If the only Big Ten teams you can beat are bad Indiana and Michigan State teams that no longer have their coaches, what are we doing here? We play Illinois coming up. Now, Illinois, with Brett Bielema, turned things around. They were 6-1 before they ran into the Hornets' nets. That was Oregon. That was a game I was interested in seeing because how is it that is Illinois going to stack up against the top half of the league? Well, they're, kind of want to play defense, play close to the vest kind of team that Brett Bielema, kind of game he likes to play. Will that be a problem for Oregon, or will Oregon just run them off the field like Oregon tends to do? And here's the thing that I feel a little better about, but not necessarily. Illinois gets beat down by Oregon. So it kind of exposes them as not being elite. Not that we thought they were elite. I think, they're at this point not even Indiana. But how would they stack up against the Oregons of the world? If they played them tough, that would have been a problem for us. So now, at least we can see Illinois is a vulnerable team. They were 6-1, now they're 6-2. Would we match up well with them? Luke Altmaier, for the second game in a row, did not have a great game. 17-35, 161 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's a guy, if our defense was at least average, we can manage that well. I'm not so sure with our defense. Garbers wasn't having a great season until he came to Piscataway. But if you want to add a little positivity of where we have the opportunities, that might be one. Our offense is starting to gain a little rhythm the past couple games. We'll get to that in a second. Out of those 4 games, they're all toss-up games, and there's not one that I say, Maryland likes to throw it, but as we saw against Minnesota, they can be stopped. Are they going to get better against Rutgers? Illinois beats Nebraska, who held us in check. They beat Michigan get beat down by Oregon. Is that somebody? How are we going to match up with them? How's that going to play out? How's that going to flesh out? Michigan State beats Iowa by 12 points, 32-20. When was the last time we beat Iowa? What did we lose, 22-0 last year? They fought hard against Michigan. They typically play well in the first half. I've watched a few games of Michigan State this past year. They play well in the first half. The opportunities come in the second half, but in the second half, we're not a great team. If we're behind in the second half, this is a problem for us. Whether it's Wisconsin, whether it's UCLA, whether it's USC, whether it's Nebraska, we're not a comeback team. We have that potential, in my view, if we were to allow our offense and Kirk Ciarrocca to open things up and play like we have the past couple games. A more fluid offense. A passing game. A little more dynamic, a little more aggressive. Not always handing the ball off to Kyle on first and second down. That opening drive against UCLA in the second half, we came out throwing, hit some slants. Guys were catching the ball, moving the ball. Then we hand it to Kyle. You can do that out on the edge. You can do it in the gap. Get 7-8 yards. I've said this, that's the way to go about it. If you're going to want to play close to the vest against teams like Maryland, who are going to wing the ball all over the place, or even a team like Minnesota, who can pass and can throw, and they're looking for some balance. They're not a dynamic offense, despite scoring 48 points against Maryland. Illinois, kind of similar. Luke Altmaier and Athan are not all that different. Manage the game, accurate passes from throw underneath. They're not real flashy. They get the job done. That'll be a good matchup. We'll see where we stand as a team and how we match up against Illinois. Michigan State for sure is more talented on defense. They absolutely are. I think we have the advantage at quarterback, although Aiden Childs the past couple games has been okay. Was kind of a disappointment. I think he had 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions before last game. Michigan State under Jonathan Smith is starting to gain a little bit of rhythm now. And that's a game that I don't feel good about. Don't feel good about Minnesota either. Minnesota has a win against USC. If our defense is vulnerable and leaks like a sieve against Maryland, it's another one we won't win. So going forward, I'm not sure what the message is going to be from the coaching staff to the team and how it is they finish up the season. Are they going to make business decisions? Alec from Rutgers Rivals, reported just about an hour ago. Gavin Sidwar, 3-star quarterback out of Pennsylvania, who I said did a video on recruits back in the summer, reminded me, yes, of Justin Herbert with his delivery and the way that he strides into the ball. He decommitted. And that's a couple decommits right now, and I know, Richie and Mike from the night report were saying, well, it's not always because you're losing, they want to be closer to home, yada, yada, yada. These kids want to be associated with winners. There's a reason why Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State get a lineup of 4- and 5-star guys. People want to be part of a winning culture, winning program. So any sign of cracks and not playing well is going to be a tipping point for some players. I'm not saying I know why Gavin decommitted. but it's a distinct possibility. We'll see how that winds up. Which makes the home stretch not just important for the players this year getting to a bowl. A 6-6 in a bowl a bid yet again was not what we were looking forward to this year. Dismiss all the talk about the undefeated team by the chattering classes trying to get clicks because Rutgers' schedule was really weak. I think there was reasonable expectations by some that, if you picked off some wins that maybe you thought you wouldn't be able to and go 10-2, okay. 8-4 was reasonable. 9-3 would be excellent. 7-5, 6-6 would be kind of a disappointment. Hey, if we got healed up and went on a run and won 4 in a row, we wound up 8-4, kudos. Good job. That's what we're talking about. But I think we know that's not who we are. And like Coach said in the post-game press conference, bye weeks aren't a panacea. Not everybody's going to be healed up. Okay, now you're ready to go. There's guys with long-term injuries. There's guys that play dinged up throughout the year. Lord help us if Kyle misses any time. No disrespect to Antoine Raymond, but we know that Kyle's not only productive, but he's a leader just by the way he leads and plays on the field. This guy's a tough son of a gun. When he's dinged up, that when he got hit in the ribs, the end of the first half against UCLA, he's on the bench, first play the second half and comes out and has a big second half. Had a good first half against USC. This guy's all heart. Love that. So guys that are playing dinged up like that, we're not sure how that affects the rest of their season and their performance. But heading down the stretch, this is a psychological play. This is a psyops operation, right? You don't want to finish the season going, 2-6. It's like, it's a big downer. Football is a game of energy, psychology, emotion, momentum. You want to be able to finish strong, finishing weak every year, losing down the stretch. This is something that Greg Schiano and the staff is going to have to figure out. It can't just be about injuries. Even by dumb luck, we should be able to pull off a win against Maryland or Minnesota or Illinois, somebody, but somehow we're never able to do that. We're 4-17 down the stretch. And the wins are against the bottom of the barrel of the Big Ten. There's not even a win in there against a middling Big Ten team. We have a bunch of middling Big Ten teams here. Michigan State, 4-4. Minnesota, Maryland. These are our peers. It's not against the law to go out there and beat Maryland 35-17. Why can't we ever do that? Minnesota, same thing. If it's only about not having the right depth or the big drop-off between our starters and our second string, then what are we doing wrong? We've had a couple good recruiting classes. Are these guys not developing? Are they not being coached correctly? Is the scheme wrong? I think it's all of that. Because the pattern repeats itself year in and year out. And it's not controversial. It's not a hot take. The numbers are what they are. Coach is talking about the math of going for 2-point conversions early in the second half. This is the math. We're terrible against the Big Ten. What are you, 9-31? Past 3 years, 4-17 down the stretch. Last year we had a couple wins, but second half of the season. But again, we're not beating Iowa. We're beating a Michigan State team whose coach got fired. And the slop and the rain and the block punt. And it was a game that we looked miserable in the first half. Which is another thing that as long as we get to this point, our ability to play complementary football for an entire game hasn't been great. It's poor. We would have thought if Ethan Kaliakamanis throws for over 300 yards this week, 287 last week, we would have thought, well, what, we're not undefeated? Defense, special teams, all are returning upperclassmen on defense. Offensive line, really good last year, 12 sacks. Kyle Monangai, leading rusher in the Big Ten. He's coming back. Guys coming back, make the commitment, take the next step. This is the year that we thought we'd take that next step, because next year it's going to be difficult. If we go 6-6 this year, we may not see a winning season beyond 500 for several years. Because next year we got Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Iowa. 4 losses right there. And then we have like 6 toss-up games. We play Miami of Ohio and Ohio. Those are two wins. And 6 toss-up games and 4 losses. So are we even going to be... I know Coach said it's not linear. You don't go just linear in one direction. But how... we go 4-8, we go 5-7, we go 6-6, 7-6. When Coach talks about we're going to get there, what is there? What does that mean? We're going to get to the college football playoffs next year? That's not going to happen. For sure, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen 3-4 years from now. Not if we can't get past Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, or Illinois, or Indiana, rather. And that's what makes it so frustrating. Other teams change and adapt quickly and become more adaptable to a modern style offense. Now, we don't know what Indiana's going to do. Maybe next year, Indiana lays an egg. But we have enough talent, good recruiting classes that are just underperforming. And I have to say, hate to say it because I like our coaches, coaching staff. Things aren't coming together. We don't execute well. Talked about situational football being bad, but it's not just about situational football, going for it, not going for it, block kick, this, that, the other thing. It's about how fluid the offense looks. With Gavin, we knew what we had. The offense was a little herky-jerky. He was either going to hand it to Kyle or run it himself or try and throw a quick out. When he dropped back for a pass, he was going to throw a fastball all the time. So the fluidity of the offense was very choppy. With Ethan, 100% much better passer. instill the offense. Can't develop consistency and fluidity, although the past couple of games it's been much better. Hopefully that's where we are going forward, because if we continue to make progress on the offense doing what we're doing in the passing game, need to beef up the running game a little more. We need to get closer to the 200-yard mark. That's when we know we're playing well. We'll have good opportunities to beat Michigan State, Minnesota, Illinois, Maryland. And look, at this point, it's sad to say, but if we go 2-2 down the stretch now, it feels like a win. We get a December 15th bowl in, Detroit or something. But if you can find it within yourself as a program to pull yourself up from your bootstraps, win 3 out of 4 games, it'd be like, all right. This team's got grit. They're chopping. Yeah, they had some injuries. Yeah, defense has had issues and problems. But they answered the call. Went 3-1 down the stretch. 7-5, not optimal, not what we thought we were going to get into. But 7-5 is better than 6-6. If we win a bowl game, we go 8-5. That's progress. Get healthy. Get your guys ready for the NFL. Tighten up your recruiting classes. Get ready for next year, and there's something that we can actually look forward to. But you are what your record says you are. So if we go 6-6 again, or maybe we go 5-7, if we take a step back, that's a huge hit. You said the UCLA game was really important. Why? Because you were going on the road against USC. If you would have gotten that 5th win against the team that was beatable with one of the worst offenses in the country, and you took care of business at home, you could stop the bleeding a little bit, even if you lost to USC. But we let UCLA march up and down the field on us. Garbers looked like Troy Aikman. We knew USC was going to run us out of the Coliseum, and they did. So where does that leave us now? I don't even know if you can find answers to that, because there's too many different components going into that failure to meet standards. Is it injuries? Is it scheme? Is it play calling? Is it coaching? Players not making plays? It's all of that. Can we fix that in a bye week? Probably not. But we're going to have to find a way. Find a way to instill in a team that it doesn't always have to, we can't be the 4th year in a row fading down the stretch. Boy, if we go 0-4, could you imagine? And there's a possibility that all of these 4 remaining teams, Minnesota, Illinois, Maryland, Michigan State, they all can beat us. There's not a question about that. This is not an abstract question. It's not a hot take. They literally all can beat us. If we lost 8 in a row and we went 4-8, that's a huge step back. And I know Richie and Mike from the Night Report was saying that Greg Schiano has a really long leash no matter what happens. I've said this before. Like Coach Schiano, good guy, smart guy, tough guy. Good face of the program, won't embarrass you, on or off the field. I think he's got some head-scratching moves, but you know what I mean. But when do we get to talk about when are we going to make steady progress? Rutgers is an extremely hard university to win at, which is really weird. We're in a state that's rich with athletic talent, football, wrestling, basketball. But we're also the wealthiest state, depending on the year, number 1, number 2, number 3. People have opportunities. They travel, want to see, go to other places. They want to get away from the hustle and bustle of the New York metropolitan area. And they'll go to Penn State in the middle of nowhere, or Syracuse in the middle of nowhere. West Virginia in the middle of nowhere. So to keep people home, keep the top athletes home, and making it appeal to people from other states to come to New Jersey. Yeah, we've had some recent success going, Ohio and Georgia, North Carolina. It's not enough. Difficult place to coach. Nonetheless, football is football. And you got to find a way for God, whether, you're Boise, what are they, 6-1, 7-1. Utah was undefeated and they were ranked. Now they're like 4-4, but they've been pretty good for the past several years. And SMU, they're like the redheaded stepchild in Texas. They don't have the recruiting power of Texas A&M, or even like Baylor or Texas Tech. When is it that we're going to be able to make plays against teams that are our peers and we beat them and we feel good about it? We beat them by 10, 12 points and we pick up a couple wins down the stretch. That's going to be the challenge for this team going forward the rest of the year. They're going to have to find a way to dig deep down and pull off at least 2 wins, because if they don't, it's a lost season, and I feel bad for the players, the staff, and the fans, and those of us that support the program with our time, energy, dollars, and doing stuff like this. It's not fun. To be honest, and I've said this before, I've been going to Rutgers games since the early 70s with my dad against teams like Bucknell, Lehigh, Colgate, Holy Cross. Rutgers is an anomaly. It's the only state university in the country not named after the state. I almost rather it go back to being a public liberal arts college, playing Bucknell, Lafayette, Colgate, Lehigh, going 12-0 and getting to a bowl game and maybe knocking somebody off. That would be fun. Leave the University of New Jersey, New Jersey State University, to another organization and entity. Nonetheless, we're at where we're at. These next 4 games are going to be a tell, not just for this season, not just for the players and their plans for their future, but going forward for us. Everybody enjoy your week, enjoy the bye week. We'll see you soon. Probably do another video on maybe some sort of Big Ten review and preview. And don't let the results on the field get you down. Enjoy a little something when I'm not having Eric LeGrand's bourbon. Haven't tried this Jefferson's Ocean Cast Strength? It's a store pick. Ever see it around? Give it a shot. Really lush, decadent, rich, round, high proof. Love this stuff. Everybody enjoy your week.